Okay, today's lessons is 9-4, solving quadratic equations. And I took a screenshot from your textbook so that we could talk about some of the examples that they have in your book. And the most important thing I want you to write down right now in your notes is that a quadratic equation can have 2, 1, or no real solutions. Okay, and that also the roots of the equation, so right here it says the roots of the equation or zeros of the function, those are our solutions. Okay, so that's the most important thing. Sometimes they're called solutions, sometimes you might see them called roots, sometimes you might see them called zeros in the textbook, but we can have 1, 2, or no solutions. Okay, so now if we look at our graph, they went through and they graphed each of these equations, and when they did that, they came up with 2 points on this equation. So when they graphed it, they have 2 points. They have a point, and I'm going to use my highlighter here. They have a point right here, and then they have a point right here. It crosses the x-axis, and so my answer is -2 and also +2 for this graph right here. Okay, the next graph, they have graphed the equation, and now it only crosses the x-axis, and I'll use a different color than the pink that they have. The only place it crosses the x-axis is right here. So this one has a solution of 0, and it's just one solution. So this one is just one solution. If we look at the one previously, that's a 2 solution problem, and the solutions are +2 and -2. Okay, and this is a 1 solution. And now if you look at this one, this is the no solution problem, because when they graphed it, it ended above the x-axis up here, so our x-axis is down here, and so that is the no solution. Okay, so that's what we're doing today. So I went through and I have some graphs so we can practice this. So in your text, on your notes, I want you to graph these with me, and we're going to use our special step pattern to graph it. It seemed to work pretty good, and so we're going to use it again. Now, this one is all set up in special vertex form. Like the gentleman talked about in our video, there was a vertex form. And this one, if we set this equation to y is equal to x squared minus 1, our a is 1, our b, is there any x there? There's not, so it's 0. And our c is -1. So if I found out what our vertex is, if I didn't know it was a special case, I would have this, and of course there's no 0 for a negative for a 0, so it'd just be 0 over 2, which is 0. So my x is 0. So if you plugged in a 0 right here, if we substitute a 0 here, 0 squared is 0, we would just have a -1. Oh, so my x is 0, and my y is -1. Okay, so that is our vertex. And we did this last week. So now, I'm going to find my vertex, which is 0, -1, which is down here. Then I'm going to use my special step pattern, which is 1, 3, 5, 7. Remember, we need to multiply that by our a, which is 1. And so 1 times these numbers is just that number. So now I'm going to go ahead and graph it. Over 1, up 1, over 1, up 3, 1, 2, 3. And then I can go over 1, up 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So go back down to my vertex, which is right here, over 1, up 1, over 1, up 3, 1, 2, 3. And then over 1 and up 5, and it was all the way to the top. And now I've got my parabola graphed. So we're going to draw the line. I'm not very good at drawing the line, but I'm doing my best. Okay, and then what we are doing, since we're solving, sorry, my arrows are not very good either. It goes the line that goes on forever. This is where they cross the y-axis. So here's my, the x-axis, here's my x. It crosses here and here. So it crosses at x is equal to +1 and x is equal to -1. So I could write it as x is equal to positive and -1. And this one is a two-solution problem. Okay, so now let's do the next one, letter B. Okay, it's all set to 0. So now I'm going to rewrite it as an equation as y is equal to 2x squared plus 4. And again, my a is 2 this time. My b is 0 again. And my c is 4. So because it's in that special form, I know my vertex is going to be 0 and 4, because the c is going to be your y when it's in special vertex form. So now I have, let me change my color, 0, 4. So I'll find 0, and I'm going to go up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I have my 1, 3, 5, 7, and remember to multiply by a, so 1 times 2 is 2, 3 times 2 is 6, 5 times 2 is 10, and 7 times 2 is 14. I'm not going to have space for those. So if I went over 1 and up 2, and over 1 and up 6, I don't have space for that, but over 1 up 2, here's my parabola. Okay, and where does it cross on the x-axis? It doesn't, does it? So this one is the no solution problem. It does not cross the x-axis, so this is the no solution. Okay, and now let's do number 3. We're going to graph it, but first thing we need to do is set it to 0. Is it set to 0? It's not, so I'm going to go ahead and add 16 to both sides. And so now I have, this is a 0, and on this case we're going to cross it off at 0, but we usually don't write it, so it's x squared is equal to 0. We're going to set it up as y is equal to x squared and plus 0. My a again is 1, my b is 0, and my c is 0. So my special vertex is 0, 0. So now I've got my vertex 0, 0 right here. And again we have 1, 3, 5, 7 multiplied by a, which is 1. So we're just going to use these numbers. So we're going to go over 1, up 1, over 1, 1, 2, 3. And that's good enough. We'll do that. Over 1, up 1, over 1, up 3, because we're trying to solve it. So we just need a parabola like that. Now it go down and around. And now where does it cross on the x-axis? Again, here's the x-axis. It's going to cross right here at the 0, 0. So this one is a one solution problem, and my x is equal to 0. Okay, so we've got that. Now let's go back to the other page, and we're going to continue with the notes. That's solving by graphing, and now we're going to be solving using square roots. Okay, so on this first example here, if you follow along with it, we have 2x squared minus 98 is equal to 0. So here we're at, this right here. This is what I'm reading right here. So now what did they do? They went through and they added 98 to both sides. So now we have 2x squared is equal to 98. They divided by the 2, divided by 2 to get 49. And then they took the square root of x squared, which they got x. And then they took the square root of 49, which they got 7. And it can be positive 7 or a negative 7. Okay? Because when you take if you have 7 squared, that's 49, yes? And if you have negative 7 squared, you get a positive 49. And that's why it can be a positive 7 and a negative 7. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and do the A, B, and C together so you can kind of see what they did. So we've got, first thing we've got our T, and I'm going to do the, I am going to do the T down here, or the A down here. So we've got T squared minus 25. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to get T squared by itself. So we're going to add 25 to both sides. So now I have T squared is equal to 25. The next thing is I just want 1t, so how do I make this 1t? I take the square root of the first, that, and then I take the square root of this. And it's going to be plus or minus. Because now I got t is equal to plus or minus, what's the square root of 25? Is 5. Because isn't 5 squared equal to 25, and isn't negative 5 squared also equal to 25? That's why you have plus or minus 25. Okay, let's do letter B. So now we have 3n squared plus 12 is equal to 12. Again, put your numbers on one side and the variables on the other. So now we're going to subtract 12 from this side. We're going to subtract 12 from this side. So now you have 3n squared is equal to 0. Divide by 3, divide by 3. So we have n squared is equal to 0. I'm going to take the square root of n squared, and the square root is 0. So now n is equal to 0. And that is that one. And now we're going to try C. So C is 2g squared plus 32 is equal to 0. We're going to get the g squared, 2g squared on one side and the number on the other. So I'm going to subtract 32. Subtract 32. I've got 2g squared is equal to negative 32. Divide by 2. Divide by 2. So g squared is equal to negative, so 1 will go in, so 16. Now, the final part is I'm going to take the square root of g squared, and I'm going to take the square root, so plus or minus the square root of negative 16. Okay, and what do we talk about when we're looking at square roots? Remember, you can never have a negative inside of a square root. So this one is not possible right here. So this one is the no solution. There is no solution that's going to work there. This letter B was the one solution. And over here for letter A was where there was 2 solutions. So we did one of each. Okay, so that was a lesson for 9-4. Hopefully it makes sense to you. And I've got an assignment for you to practice it. It's not too bad.